Let's talk some
I just ran into the microphone.
Don't edit that out. I want the podcast to start just like that.
Hello, and welcome to the Big Money Stylist podcast. I am Danielle, and this is Ani, and today I'm wearing a blanket.
I look like a hobo.
You don't look like that much of a hobo.
You know what?
You don't usually wear hats, except for today you're in a hat and glasses.
Because your girl's tired.
Oh, we're real tired.
We just finished our first ever virtual convention.
It was amazing, though.
Over 250 artists for 3 days, long days. It was the best.
It was awesome. I think when we did it, we were in a studio, and it's hard to be in a studio with no windows and just lights. It's like being in a newsroom for 3 days straight. Like by day 3, we were all a little giggly, and I was like, okay, we need sunlight.
Literally, we were losing our shit by day 3. Not like in a bad way,
but with, like, stupid things were like so funny. We were like, okay.
Like Carlos mispronounced someone's name, and I was
you were like on the floor. I was like, I've never seen you on the floor. I was like, pick your ass up. What are you doing?
I was literally like squatted to the floor, tears going down my face. I'm like,
usually you're the one that like holds the party together. And
you know what? And I swear to God, because I was losing it, it made everyone else spiral.
In that
for
moment,
a minute.
I was like, she's lost.
It's because you know what? The studio has such beautiful lighting, but it's like that blue light that I swear to God seeps in your brain, man.
Yes, and if anybody's ever been on stage, like stage light, it's exhausting. It really is exhausting. Like I have a little feel for like probably actors and actresses or people that are on the news, because like those lights, man, they're intense.
But you know what? I have been getting so many messages from artists just saying that they're like, I cannot believe, they're like, one girl, she's like, I won't say the brand, but I've worked with this brand for X amount of years. I've been an educator for them. I've done all these things. She goes, this is the best event I've ever attended.
Yeah,
she goes, the best fucking event.
Oh, you know what? We literally pour our heart and souls out into these events. And I always tell people, I'm like, it's not just about natural beaded rose or the like system of hair extensions. Like I want to put a fucking dent in our industry, and I want to change artists, how we're thought of, how we're looked at, how I want us to be successful. I'm so passionate about it. And so when I hear other people come in, especially if they are educators and they're like for big companies and they're like, wow. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Well, and it's crazy because even one of our artists, and I won't say who, but she's like, oh yeah, she's like, my salon's at 1.2 million this year with just 2 artists. And COVID, she has already surpassed the $1 million mark. And hearing that, I'm like,
we're doing it.
Good for
I feel like it's like when my kids say that, I'm like, my kids?
Your 300 students are...
No, literally, when I hear these stories, I'm like, and it's so funny because whenever we do our events, we offer the Academy to our students, which is a year program on the business, marketing, and sales, as well as the tool of natural beaded rose. And some people, and it's not cheap, it's not cheap. I was gonna say for our industry, but really for any industry. But you know what? We like pour our little hearts and souls into it, and I know my students get results. Like this was the first year we offered a guarantee,
like literally a money back guarantee, that if at the end of the program you're not making X amount of dollars per year,
we will pay you back your full tuition for being in the Academy.
Here you go. Thank you.
But you know what's crazy? I was like thinking about it, and I was like, okay. So I'll just say it's a $15,000 program. And I was like, okay, if you did 10 clients, just 10, if you don't believe in yourself enough, like even if you went and got some random other certification, if you don't believe in yourself enough to do 10 clients, don't take that class.
For sure.
Like don't go get that certification. And so that's kind of how I look at it, is I'm like, 10 clients within a year is totally doable.
Yeah, well, and it's so crazy because I had, some artists even message me. They're like, but I make 6 figures. Like, can I have a different guarantee? I'm like, no, you're not going to have a different guarantee than everybody else. I'm like, you have to want it for yourself more than I want it for you. And I want it for you a whole fucking lot because it's life-changing. It's just life-changing.
I think that's where you and I kind of got in trouble in the past, is we would want it so bad for people, and we always tell, like, our students were like, you have to be a leader, not a savior. But there was even this place where we found ourselves trying to save people, and that was always the time where it didn't work out. Like we were like, oh, well, obviously I wanted it more for you in this moment, and that's okay. And I think now, like where we're at, like our mental capacity has really. It's just like when it's not a good fit, whether it's a new student or a current student or whatever it is, I used to be so personally offended. I'd be like, oh, and I think it's because I wanted it more than they did.
Yeah, definitely.
And I've gotten to this place where I'm like, life's about timing and I can only do so much, and I don't know what's going on in your personal life or whatever it is. So I wish you the best. And like I said, now I'm kind of like, I know where I'm going. I'm tunnel vision. Like I'm pretty fucking mentally strong with where I'm at right now. And so when I keep focus on that and what I feel like I'm called to do, I'm not like angry. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, you know what? The door's, I always tell people, I'm like, the door's always open. And if the timing's not right for you, that's fine. Go do you. Because I'm like so tired of leaving and feeling like bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and I think especially in this industry, like, you know, if you have a hair salon or whatever it is, and you have an artist there and the artist leaves, or you have an assistant and the assistant leaves, or you had a client and the client leaves, we do take it very personally.
Right.
And not saying that we should and or shouldn't, like we can't help but take it personally because we care. And we are, I feel, one of the few industries that's still extraordinarily hands-on. Like we are we're in the service industry. Yes. Like we are there touching you and whatever. So, and even then, you know, I've been talking to some artists that, you know, that they message me because we have about 275 artists in the academy and a few hundred more joining at the end of this year now, which is amazing. Right. And even inside of that, you know, they'll message me and be like, I'm so upset. I was friends with so-and-so and we were doing this thing together and now they left and I can't help. They're like, I'm hurt and I'm upset and I feel betrayed and now they're coming to me and now they're talking shit and now they're saying these things. And like I'm watching this person spiral based on someone else's feelings and emotions. Yes. And, you know, I was talking to some students even yesterday and I'm like, I get it. Like I've been there where I was so dedicated and committed to something, even something like BMS or the academy or moving to California, like working here, like whatever it is, or, you know, learning a new extension method, dropping clients. I was so committed to something and someone else didn't like it for me, or maybe they tried. Personal. Yeah. Or like they tried and it didn't work for them. And then they're immediately talking shit like, you're going to hate it. You're not going to fit in. It's a scam. It's this, it's that. And it's like, but wait a minute. I used to be so offended by those things. Like really, like it would, even like I'll use myself like as a trainer, when students would leave, because I can even think of one in particular, like I sat with her while she bawled her eyes out and told me about all these health problems, the surgery she had to have, and the fact that like she might not make it through, like she could die and her kid would not have a mother. Like I sat with her and had these conversations, and then one day she up and left what was Mastermind then, and then literally on social media she was like, Ani's basically Satan. I'm a terrible fucking person, that she hated me, I didn't give a shit about anybody. And I sat there and I was like, like it was like someone like had punched me in the gut. And in that moment, it's so hard not to take it personally because I sat there and I'm like, I did everything I could to help you. Yeah,
but the thing is like you're helping so many people. You know what I mean? It's like the fact that you give each individual student inside what I'm trying to say is like, I think people don't realize how busy you are, and not to sound like cold-hearted, but it's like you gave them everything you could. Do you know what I mean?
And then even then when they, in their own personal life, something like wasn't working or they were upset, it's almost like I took the brunt of everything that was wrong in their life. Instead of being like, you know what, I'm unhappy in my marriage, my husband's being a fucking dick, or we're losing money, or my husband's sick, or my wife is sick, or my kids aren't doing good in school. Instead of being like, I have a personal problem that is fucking me up mentally and emotionally, I'm going to say, like, where can I project that and who can I blame? And like, I became the brunt from like, guys, like even like restraining orders, like crazy shit happened.
Even think about like, I think about clients that they have maybe like with extensions, like they have a lot of damage or whatever it is, and you end up like doing their hair, and then all of a sudden they don't like it, and NBR or you as the artist are to blame for 10 years of past experience, or 5 years of damage, or 5 years of, or somebody else's coloring job that bleached and fried their hair, but now all of a sudden you take the responsibility because you're like the last person that they worked with, or based on where they're at in their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and even talking to one of the students yesterday, she was saying, she's like, I hope one day I can be as mentally strong as you. And I'm like, thank you. That's actually a very big compliment, but hold up. Getting to this place of being like, you know what, even though you are attacking me as a person, as a human, as a friend, as a trainer, as an artist, like you're literally attacking me, I'm not going to take it personally because I know it's not about me. It's about you. And you're projecting your shit onto me.
Yeah. And it takes a strong person to understand that. And it takes an even stronger person to be like, okay, I have this rule with myself because everybody's emotionally like triggered. Like if somebody said something on social media or emailed me, my immediate response is like, well, fuck you then. And then I'm like,
hold on, Danielle.
So I have a rule with myself where I'm like, don't respond off emotion. Like don't respond off an emotion. Like let it simmer for a minute. And I'll let my response like kind of just like sit for a minute, and I'll try to look at different perspectives, and then I'll typically respond to people. But the worst thing I can do is respond emotionally. But it's like human nature to respond like that. But it's taken me years to kind of like get to that place where I'm like, I'm not going to hold it in. Like I'm not going to hold it in, but I'm also not going to respond based off of just like emotion.
Yes. And I think it's a matter of, like, if you're wanting to be that person that you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm that person that takes things offensively. Like if me and my friend did a class together and I loved the class and she hated it, and then she's like, that was a stupid class, I didn't like it. Then you're like, oh.
But then you're like, but I had a different experience.
I
really liked it. And I think I do want, it honestly depends on like,
hard.
It depends where you're at. And it's so crazy because, so I grew up very Mormon in Utah. And I remember when my husband and I were literally like on the brink of divorce. Like this is when I started my brand. I had no money. I didn't like my husband. My husband had emotionally cheated on me with another woman. And I just was like rock bottom. And I was like, I don't know who to fucking trust. I don't even have a husband I can trust right now. And I didn't feel like comfortable. I didn't want to like go to my mom and be like, I hate my husband, because I was like, if things work out, like she's gonna hold this little grudge. And I was like, nah. So I kind of just like internalized a lot of it. And it was crazy because I kept listening to voices of friends and family and this kind of thing. And I felt like I was like spiraling downwards. Like I was like, I don't know who to believe anymore. And but everything that my friends and my family are telling me right now doesn't feel like the right option for me. Like in my gut, I'm like, I have to remove myself from this situation. Like I've got to it's not that I don't love my family. I love my family. We're in a wonderful place now. Yeah. But in this time, I knew it wasn't about my family. It was about me. I blocked every single member of my family who we were real tight, and every single one of my friends that I was friends with at that time that I felt like were not on my team in the right way. Yeah. Completely not unfriended, but I was just like, I need a minute. Like I blocked everybody on social media. Like I was like, bye. And I packed up my shit and we moved to Arizona. And like I said, I didn't even know if I liked my husband, but I was like, I got to give myself a chance and my family a chance. And that was one of the hardest fucking things I'd ever had to do because I grew up in a very like religious culture and basically, and I left the church. And like, if you move on from the church when you're Mormon, like you basically are saying like goodbye to your family forever. Like
you're like dead to them.
It's pretty like deep rooted. And I was like, I don't feel like this is my path anymore. In my gut, like I feel like I need to do something else. And it was so hard. But the message kept coming to me, Danielle, you need to tunnel vision. You need a tunnel vision. You need a tunnel vision. You need tunnel vision. And I had to physically remove myself from the state that I was living in. And for the next 2 years when we lived in Arizona, I worked on myself. I literally, we moved to a small, quiet town, which was like perfect. It was exactly where we needed to be in that moment because it was a small town. And I just was like, what do you need to do for you right now? And it was a really cool experience for me because in that 2 years, Garrett and I started to work on ourselves, but then there was no noise and we could work on our relationship together. Yeah. And by the time we got to California, we both had started liking each other a little more. And we also had built up our businesses to the direction that we wanted to go, but we couldn't have done that without completely tuning out all the noise. And then after we got our shit together, all of a sudden I was like, why am I being such a dick to my family? and I had those conversations and now me and my family are cool. And I had to realize in that moment, it wasn't about anyone else but me. But I was smart enough to be like, I gotta tunnel vision and do what I need to do. But I never ran my mouth.
But I think, even what you're saying of you're like, I had to like block out the noise and move on. I think that's where people really struggle because they're like, but
they hold their identity of who they are. Like I had to literally let go of my identity. I was like, I'm not going to be Mormon. I might get divorced. I'm leaving the church. I'm like I'm going to start drinking. I was basically Satan. Like Satan was moving on. That's how hard it was for me to leave the culture that I was in as I was basically saying goodbye to this Danielle version that I don't give that's not me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and even in that, like, I feel like when people share experiences, whether it's like students or artists and like boss and assistant, like whatever it is, you know, friends, and then one friend is like, fuck this shit, I'm out. Mm-hmm. I feel like it takes a lot for you to be like, this may not have been your path, but I like that path for me.
Right.
Because if not, and you keep hearing it, like imagine, Danielle, like you doing the fitness competition, if every day, because I feel like we're close, you and I talk literally every, there's not a day goes by that you and I don't speak. And what if every day I was like, that's so stupid, that's ridiculous, why would you do that? Who fucking cares?
Or even like jabs like, I mean, you don't need to do it if you don't want to. I mean, I was going to do a competition, but I didn't feel like I needed to, you know, to get on stage.
The competition's so stupid. They just, whatever. It's so ridiculous.
I hate passive aggressive statements too.
Yeah, and even shit like that, like even though Danielle, like you were stoked about doing it in the beginning, there might have been a time where had I kept doing that and doing that, you might have been like, is this a bad, I
think I would have just been like, yeah, I don't know. Like you really have to like just decide what your goals are. And
yes. And inside of that, it's hard to be like, you know what? This may not have been right for you, but then it's almost like taking yourself out of their feelings that they are then projecting onto you and really telling yourself, okay, but how do I feel?
Right.
Like what, like, does this business work for me? Like this person that works with me, like, has it been a good relationship? Like me going down this path or doing this education or moving to the city.
I think too, and to surround yourself with people that have the same vision and mindset as you. And just like even going back to like the fitness thing, there was people that were like, oh, you look great, why are you doing it? And it wasn't like they were trying to be negative, but they would say things like, but why are you doing it? But I loved my trainer. Like she was so good. Like even though I was like, I don't want to do it anymore, Val, she's like, oh, we're doing this. I was like, well, okay, that's what I needed, thank you. And I think you need people like that in your life. Because I was like, I'm happy with my body, Val. She's like, it's not about that. Like, don't you want to, like, she was like, come on, don't you want to do this? And I was like, I do. And I felt like I was selling out because I was like scared that I was scared. I literally was scared that I wouldn't be able to physically get in the shape that I needed to be in to be on stage. And so because I was doubting myself, I would be like, no, I'm good enough with where I'm at because of self-doubt. And she was like, no, you can do this. And so it's crazy to think like you want to be around people that even when you're in that space of like self-doubting that are like, no, they're scared too. And we're all fucking doing it and we're doing it scared. But you need almost that culture, you know?
Well, and I think it's interesting because someone else might have heard that and been like, Val just wants your money. She doesn't really care. She just doesn't want to like stop training. You know what I mean?
No, she definitely didn't. She was
that's what I'm saying. Like someone else on the outside might have been like, oh, Danielle's trainer convinced her to keep doing it. She just wants Danielle's money. But that's why it's not about those things. And you have to be able to put aside the noise and recognize this other person is going through some shit. Right. And that's happened. We have had people leave the team in like not so great ways and then come back a year later and be like, I just want to apologize. How I left was not correct. I did it because this was going on in my personal life and I literally could not juggle both and I'm sorry.
You know what's crazy too? I have had some splits from my salon that were very emotional for me because I felt like, you know, I was very close with a few people and it wasn't like they just left. It was like they were building something behind the scenes, behind my back, and then just like, bam, I was like, oh, I feel so used right now. And they probably felt the same way, right?
Yeah.
Like there's two people in every situation and I get it. But I kind of get to this place where I'm like it's hard not to, like, when you hear a student or anything else, it's hard not to have those feelings, right? It's totally normal. But in the end, I have to go into my business with like, you know what? I genuinely am like, I feel bad. I know it's like there's something else underlying problem. There's something else going on in your life. And I can make it worse and kind of be rude and be like, well, we don't need you anyways. Or I can just leave it at like, hey, you know what? That's great. You do that and the door's always open. Like, as much as I like don't want to play like that card because I'm like, I want it for you. I have to always be like, no, just go. Because if I really want it for you, I have to allow you to do it on your own time, which means in 2 years, if you want to come back and that's your time, like I know that in the end, I want you to win. And so that's what mentally gives me this peace of mind when I'm like, why the fuck are you doing that? Is I'm like, no. If you really want them to win, you got to let them go. And if they choose to come back, great. And if they don't, I hope wish the best for them as well.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like the chaos that I feel that comes with people leaving, whether it's a business partner, whether it's an assistant, whether it's a client, whether it's just a friendship in your life. Like, yes, there will be emotional feelings, but you have to be clear. So even to one of my girls yesterday who was like, I wish I could be as mentally like stable and strong as you. I'm like, yes, but that did not come without pain. Yeah. It did not come without repetition. It did not come without tears, without heartache, without heartbreak. Like I didn't get to be here where I am now, and I'm not actually a cold person. I'm actually a pretty warm and fuzzy person, but I'm able to like put some things aside, almost like contain them and be like, you know what? It hurts that you're saying that. It's disappointing that you're saying that. It's disappointing that after everything we've been through, that's how you're going to show up. But that says more about you and where you are at in your life than me. Because while I am so fucking far from a perfect person, I am so far from perfect, I feel I'm a very consistent and constant person. Right. I feel like knowing me, you pretty much know what you're getting all the time. That yes, I grow as a human. I grow emotionally, mentally, all those things, but I'm me.
I think when you're as busy as both of us are, we have to be very protective about our energy, our space, and our bubble, because now we're affecting multiple people's lives, right? So if we're hung up on this one drama thing over here or whatever it is, then we can't help other students or we can't help other people, and we have to bring our A game like 100% of the time. So we have to be, although it might seem cold, it's not cold. It's just, I think of it as being very protective so that we can serve more people.
Because at the end of the day, if I sit here and I let either one of us, if we sit here and we let ourselves be distracted by one person who's talking shit, or even let's say it's two people, whatever, we at that point, it's almost like you have a bucket, and your bucket is the full amount of energy that you can have, and you've allowed someone to like tap right into it and like just turn the spigot on full. Yeah. Like that doesn't work. So I always think of that too. And I'm always like, okay, I saw something the other day that said, if it won't matter in 72 hours, then it doesn't matter now. Right. And I think about that sometimes and I'm like, is this really going to matter to me in 3 days with everything else going on? And I'm like, no, it won't. Yeah. And in moments like that, I'm like, you know what? Then I'll address it to get it off my plate, but I'm not going to like pour more energy, more time, more emotions, tears, feelings into something that I'm like in 3 days doesn't actually
That's
matter.
how I feel about a good pair of shoes. I'm like, not to go off topic, but like seriously, as a girl, sometimes like you put stuff in your cart and you're like, I'm definitely getting that. And then you like go back to your cart and you're like, oh, I forgot I even put that in my cart. And I'll be like, I guess I don't need it. You know what I mean?
Girl, do you know what I do sometimes? Sometimes I just favorite things and I'm like, I'll be back at the end of the week. If I still like you at the end of the week, I'll get you. Yes. If not.
And you know what? This is kind of on topic, but off topic. But like, I love shopping and I love like nice things, but I try to like keep it in check because it's not fun if you just can feel like you can buy whatever you want whenever you want. Then it's like, it's not fun. Like really. Yeah. So for me, like if I have something like it's kind of like a nice pair of shoes or anything, like I like make myself kind of like sit on it for a minute because I want to like make sure I really, really want it. If I'm still thinking about it.
Like those Chloe boots?
Yeah.
I know.
So if I'm still thinking about it, I'm like, okay, you should get it. But you know, same goes down like to conversations I'll be having with my husband, Garrett. Like there's times where like I'll want to say something and I'll be like, you're going to regret this tomorrow morning, so just fucking walk away. And I learned that the hard way because I have said things in the past, and so has he, that like you can't really unsay. But now we've gotten to a pretty like safe, respectful space for one another that I feel like when we feel that heat coming, we both kind of like are like, is this going to matter in the morning? Or you know what? It will matter in the morning, but why don't we come back and revisit this conversation and have a more not so heated energy going on right now. So I feel like that's like something that you can do in both personal and in business.
And I know like there are times where, like instances happen that it triggers me and I'll go through sometimes and just like record an audio and be like, son of a bitch, like this is what's happening. Like, or honestly, sometimes I just call my mom and I'm like, girl, you gotta listen to this shit. You're not gonna fucking believe it. Yeah. Cause I know for me, talking about something, number one, I feel like it gets the energy like out of me instead of sitting there spewing and being like, you fucking bitch, God, I fucking hate you right now. It's like, okay, let me just talk about it. And I also feel like when I go through and talk about it, I gain clarity on the situation where I'll be like, oh yeah, well this and that, and then I'll be like,
I write out my feelings a lot.
Really?
Yeah, I know you say I'm not a reader, but I'm not really like a writer, but I'll take my phone and because I physically have to like talk it out.
You're doing what I do just to your phone. I just do it to my mom.
Yeah, I know. I don't, you know, sometimes I do it. Sometimes I do it to Garrett and I feel bad because we'll be on date night. I'll be like, oh my God. And he's like the one person that I feel like I can just like kind of be like, oh, I'm so stressed and here's why. You know what I mean? Because sometimes you need somebody to like just get the energy out.
Yes.
Right? But then I feel bad sometimes because I'm like, he doesn't want to hear about all the like shit at work going on. You know what I mean? So now I take my phone and I literally turn on my notes and I'll just like voice my feelings out and I'll go back and I'll read it. And I'm like, is that true, Danielle? Is that true? Probably similar to stacking.
You knew what I was going to say. You felt me thinking it.
Well, I tease Garrett because he's like, he has this software called the Stack, and it's literally like therapy, but like self-therapy.
Yeah.
And it's like ask you a series of questions and you like answer them, and then you go back and read it, and by the end of the stack, you're like, I'm the asshole. Okay.
Okay.
Or you're or there's gratitude stacks, or there's whatever. You could be like, I'm super actually grateful for Ani, or like whatever it is.
Well, and it's so funny because even like going through, like I actually did that to the guy I'm dating this morning. I was like, you want to hear some shit that just happened? And he was like, yeah, literally waking up because he worked until 2 a.m. And I was like, no, but wake up, listen to this. Yeah. And I'm literally telling him a story about like all like the emails and things that have been going out. And he's just like, and I'll literally ask, I'll be like, tell me, am I the fucked up one here? Like, tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Like, did I fuck this up?
Yeah.
Am I the asshole?
Yes, I hate being the asshole.
Yes, but also if I'm being a dick, tell me.
And I want to own it. Because I'm like, am I not saying something here? I'm like,
even like when Danielle and I were going back and forth about like something like personal that's going on, and she literally goes, am I the asshole? And I'm like, okay, you fucked up here. I fucked up here. So-and-so fucked up here.
We're all assholes.
But they all kind of fucked up here too. So I was like, there's not one person to blame. There's a lot of assholes walking around here.
There's a lot of assholes.
But I think that was a really interesting moment to be like, there's not one person to blame.
Right.
It was 5 different people that each played their own part in it, but not every single person was taking accountability. I took full accountability. I literally wrote, because I had to write this email, and in the first part I was like, I did not do XYZ, and that is on me. Right. I take accountability for that. That is my fault. I should have done that.
Right.
And then getting even like an email back where then it's almost like a snarky, like passive aggressive, like, oh, well, it's like, okay, but do you not see like the point I made of like where everybody fucked up?
Right. But and I know. And sometimes I'm like, should I say something? Should I not? I'm like, I get to this place where I'm like, is this going to matter in 72 hours? But seriously.
But I think, you know what, part of being mentally stable and mentally strong is also being able to own up in those moments.
Right.
Because if you're never able to look at a situation and be like, you know what, this is the part that I played in it, then that means you are actually the person sitting on the other side who's like, don't do that. That's stupid. That's ridiculous. They just want your money. Everybody hates you. Nobody likes. Like, you're that other person.
Right.
Like, sorry, you don't get to sit on the fence and play both sides. You are either the person taking accountability for your shit, your emotions, your feelings, and the part you play, or you're the fucking asshole who's then trying to make someone else feel bad for their choices and decisions. You don't get to be both.
Right. It's so crazy. I literally feel like even now, like, I think I know where I know where I want my company to go. I know the life I want to live. I know the people I want to surround myself with. And I just am kind of at this place where I'm like, not that I'm cold. Like I don't ever want to feel like I'm out of touch with my business or my students or anything like that. But I'm very, like, again, going back to just like very sacred about my energy and how it affects me around my kids and my husband and everything else. And like, it's like being involved, but not so involved that I can't like live a life where I like just have time where I can like be with me and my family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just think if you're that person that's always like, well, that's dumb. Well, this is stupid. I'm like, that's got to be exhausting.
I bet the reason you feel that way about everything is because you're not able to find the positivity in anything in your life, or everything that you feel has gone wrong in your life, you blame on someone else.
I remember there was only one time in my life where I just felt like I kept getting hit. I was like, oh my God, like, okay, like we lost everything. Like my husband broke his Achilles. I didn't like my husband. Like everything. I just felt like I remember like sitting there one night on the floor, just like fucking crying. And I'm like, can I get a break? Like why, like such, like almost like such a victim mentality. And I was like, why does, like, just when I think I can't get any lower, now this happens, now this happens, now this happens. And it was like one of those pivotal moments in my life that like the higher voice came down and was like, then fucking change it, Danielle. And I was like, whoa, okay.
God.
Like, God, is that you? No, but like I always have these moments where it's like not even me, or maybe it's like a more grounded version of me that's like, cool. Is that really is that your excuse? Is that where we're at? Is that really? And I'm like, no, it's not where we're at.
You're like, no, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that. But that was the only time in my life where I was like, I remember thinking like, can I get a break? And I was like, you get a break when you fucking like, when you just decide you want a break, but you're like so low, like you're so below water right now. Like you're just going to have to start swimming to like break the surface. And then from there, you can climb out of it. Like, you know what I mean?
Yes.
I was like,
I think
not a short journey.
Well, I think everybody thinks things like, can I just catch a break and then everything
Yeah.
will be easy?
Yeah.
You want a break, you have to fucking work
You
for
gotta
it.
work for it.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but breaks don't come for free. They come on the other side of the work.
Right.
So we're coming to the end of our podcast today.
I think it's funny too, because I think sometimes I have to sit back and give us as a company, as individuals, like credit for being like, we've gone through a lot of shit. Like we don't have the level of success that we have out of dumb luck. Like we are constantly like trying to crash and burn and crash and burn and crash and burn, but like in a good way, to build things back up to where like everybody on my team knows where like this is going. It's like I have a solid team now, and all of us are just like, you can't get out of, like, before it was hard when it was just me. It was so hard. Like, I even at one point felt like Garrett didn't even back me. Like, he would promote me on social media, like, my wife's awesome. But I'm like, but do you really fucking back me?
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, you talk all this hype, but then behind the scenes, you're telling me, like, my business doesn't matter and all this shit. And I just felt so alone. I was like, it's just me. Then my team left me. I don't even know if my husband fucking believes in my vision. And it might look this way on social media, but this is what's going on. And I finally had to choose for myself. I'm like, what do you want? And I built back up my teams the way I wanted. And I'm at this place where I'm like, it's where it's at today because of the commitments I made with myself and the work that I was willing to do and the team members that came because of this. Like, we're not here just because of dumb luck. So my final message for everybody listening to this podcast is, if you want change, change starts with you. And the only person that gets in their way is you. Like, literally.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you for being here with us at the Big Money Stylist podcast. We have a new episode that comes out every single Tuesday. If you want to see us and our matching hats and Danielle looking like a little ghost.
My hair is like partially wet. I have a hat on and I have my MBR t-shirt and blanket on because I'm freezing.
I brushed my hair
I do
today.
look like a little ghost.
Danielle's a little ghost. I just look like a half hobo.
So you guys, thank you so much for listening. I wanted to tell you guys too, we have more information on education coming up for 2021. Go to dkwstyling.com. You can jump on our email list. There's like a free training for me and Ani. You'll get updated information on all classes in education that's coming out in 2021. If you're not a hairstylist and you just love the podcast, we love you. Thanks for listening and keep sharing.